Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inflectra's Level 2 Test Automation series called Planet Test Automation First Steps. You are joining us for our second webinar in the series, and today's topic is automating desktop UI testing. Today's webinar will be presented by Alexei Grinievich, a senior software developer at Inflectra. He holds a doctorate in applied mathematics and has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years. For the last 10 years, his major interests have been automated testing, legacy APIs, and desktop system testing. My name is Teresa, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I turn it over to Alexei, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. First, today's webinar will last for about an hour and will consist of a theoretical part, a practical part, and end with a Q&A session. We ask that you save your questions until that time and use the built-in questions tab to send questions. These will then be read out and answered. Today's webinar will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll make the webinar recording available on Inflectra's YouTube channel under the playlist called Planet Test Automation First Steps. Please note that this webinar playlist is unlisted for the duration of the webinar series. So prior to February 1st, 2020, you will need to have a direct link to access the recordings in this webinar series. Links to each webinar recording will be emailed to you a few days after the live webinar. Or you can subscribe to Inflectra's YouTube channel to get notified when new recordings become available. At the end of this webinar, we'll give a quick poll to get a better idea if the webinar content was relevant to the group's needs. So just to give you a little bit more information about the webinar series as a whole, Planet Test Automation First Steps is Inflectra's Level 2 Automation webinar series. This series builds on Inflectra's earlier test automation series, Test Automation Demystified. This Level 2 series moves beyond the fundamentals and dives into the major technologies where test automation is used. The 5 webinars will cover UI, desktop, mobile, and API test automation. You can learn more about the series by clicking on the URL shown in your handout and also on the screen here. For those of you not familiar with our test automation webinars, we recommend that you check out our Level 1 series, Test Automation Demystified, available on our YouTube channel. We're also pleased to offer Planet Test Automation First Steps as a certificate course. The participants are eligible to receive a certificate of completion given that they meet the webinar attendance and quiz requirements. If you wish to get a certificate, you will be asked to take a short quiz after each webinar. To make things easier for you, we will send out a webinar follow-up email that contains all the materials covered in the webinar, including links to each quiz. For a full set of certificate requirements, please refer to the Frequently Asked Questions document linked in your handout. Last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, each webinar in the series has a practical part. We will demonstrate the key practical test automation concepts using Inflectra's own platform, Rapise. If you haven't downloaded the tool yet, please visit www.inflectra.com/Rapise. Feel free to use Inflectra's 30-day free trial. And with all of those housekeeping issues out of the way, I'll happy to hand it over to Alexei for today's presentation. Alexei?
Thank you, Teresa. And let's start today's sort of journey. You will see why I call it journey a bit later. Just before begin, I wrote an article covering the topics that we will demonstrate today in a bit more details. So if you feel something is not clear from what I tell you, because I will sometimes give some very concise description of why I'm doing something. I hope this article will help you to get it in more clear way. So first, we are talking about desktop testing today, and when we talk about desktop testing, the high importance of the application under test is something that we need to understand from the beginning. Every day we at Inflectra doing various customer demonstrations or support sessions, and we look at applications that people have. So what we may say is for like 10% of applications, we quickly recognize that application is not ready for automation. It's like a black box. We can do nothing here. This is in one hand. In the other, like 20% of applications are really well supported. We have some dedicated libraries that help recording, playback, and recognition of controls within specific type of application. Especially it's true for the applications we really care about, like Dynamics, like Salesforce, like some other business applications. So we have good coverage and they're well supported. But in majority of cases, the situation is not so good and not so bad. It's so-so. So application is supported to some extent. Some of its screens are better recognized. Some maybe there are some dark areas that are hard to automate. But we cannot tell. We can neither tell that we may automate it 100%, neither we can tell that there is nothing to automate. So this situation is somewhere in between. And this is a majority of cases. It's highly likely that if you automate something, you will deal with something like that. So we were trying to find some kind of this application, because normally we show our demo applications that are well suited for automation. Or well-known application that we support very well. So I was trying to find something like I described, from the so-so piece of this pie. So another criteria was that you may just take this application and try it yourself. So you may repeat what I am going to do today. So this is a link. It is a demo application from one of the control library vendors. It's Telerik. And they demonstrate, the goal of this application is to demonstrate the capabilities that Telerik control library has. For us, it's good because it's exactly in the state that we see the most frequently on the customer side. So this application is definitely not at production quality. It's somewhere in between. So its primary goal is to demonstrate, to be like a proof of concept, and some parts of it are working well, some parts of it are working worse, and more at the development stage. So it in the other hand, it has more than one screen. It's more or less sophisticated, so it mimics real life application. So it's good target for today's demonstration. And today we're going to work with it from the very beginning. So from the very first step that we are going to do to start our automation framework, to initialize all we need to initialize, to set up, to prepare, up to making the first test case and making the plan on what to do next. So today we demonstrate the situation where we are like in the beginning of the bigger efforts to automate the whole this application. And we suppose as we propose to do it in 4 steps that we describe here. It's analyze, then try, then plan, and then start implementation. If you attended our previous webinar series, Test Automation Demystified, you probably have already have an idea of what I mean here. Otherwise, you may find links to corresponding parts of previous series in the article I pointed in the beginning, and look there. There are also webinar recordings, so you may watch them when needed. So first step is analyze. We have this application, and analysis means we look at application itself from the technology point of view, from the high level point of view, from the point of view that's important for automation in general. So we wonder what library vendor is used, in which environment it works, what's entry point, what are APIs, which modules the application have, what controls are there, does it has login, does it has how data is stored, where it loaded from, does it have some data, demo data, or we need to load data to work with application, how to synchronize, do we need to wait for application to do something, or it's somehow synchronized? So all these questions are of the first interest for us. Well, here is the application itself. Let's first look at it from the technology point of view. Simplest way is to use Task Manager, find it, here it is, and choose Open File Location. So this is binary folder for the application. This is an application executable. So what we are looking for? We are looking for any signs of the technology used to create this application. So I have a suspicion that from the DLLs, it's highly likely that it is something .NET or VPF. We see some standard Microsoft controls. And looking further, I see Telerik, a lot of Telerik. So it looks like application is created with Telerik. So I knew it from the beginning because it's in the name of the application, but in general, I should find it out maybe from here, from watching the file system. Also, next application, there is a config file, and sometimes it contains interesting information and useful for us. Here I can see that it uses some web service, and most probably it's a way to load and save data for the application. One more notice is that there is a log file somewhere here, and log files are also always useful. So sometimes we may find something interesting in the logs. You see some exception or something went wrong already. Also, what I see, there is no other executables, and what I also tried, there is no command line keys. So no APIs. No types of API that I may see from here. So there is no further investigations in this direction. Well, so I noticed all that. What I did, I created a simple Excel file to do this kind of steps that I mentioned here. And in this Excel file, I will track all my findings throughout the process of application investigation. Here is this Excel file. So the first stage is analyze. In the application, I may see that it has several modules. They're available in the from the main menu, and they're explicitly visible. It's dashboard, companies, contacts, opportunities, and activities. So it's good to know. I notice it here. It's application modules. Then, as for technology, I fill this kind of table. So it's desktop. I say it's using VPF because VPF is told in the shortcut I used to launch it, and it also contains Telerik. But in general, I don't know it from the shortcut, and I could learn it using the automation spy. Well, let's look at something here, like a dashboard, and look at this object. It has a framework ID, and framework ID is VPF. So that's why that's the way I could also find out it's a VPF application. So I noticed it here. I noticed library VPF. There is an executable path, entry points. So since it's VPF, most likely, and there is no, it has no known dedicated support except generic support. So I assume it will use your automation library. There is no login in the application, which is important. So I don't need to log in to implement login logout logic. It's common. It sometimes happens with desktop application. So data is taken with web services, and I need to find out what will happen if I create something here? So there is a contacts view. Let me add a contact like AAA to some company. I think it's minimal. So AAA is here. Now I may find it here in the table. So it's here in this Stanwell company. Now, what I'm going to close this application and launch it again to check if my data is persisted. And I will skip this step, but you will find out that AAA is vanished because it's a demo application. They don't store what I enter. But it's good for us, so we may not bother about data loading stage and data preparation for tests because we have some demo data here, and it's also good to notice. And it's all already pre-filled for us. The synchronization, very good point. Is there any asynchronous behavior, and do we need to care about it? So what we need to do is we need to keep going through application, trying to do something. And you see this is a loading message. So it's loading the list of opportunities. So definitely there is asynchronous behavior, and it's good if we can track this loading message, and it's good to be able to wait for it to have the complete test. Next, in activities screen, and it differs from these companies, contacts, and opportunities. It has a calendar view. It may be switched to the list view, but its default view is calendar view. And creating something, so it's not possible to add an event from here. The only way is to add it from the calendar, and it's a bit like tricky task for us. So if we want to work with activities, we need to support this calendar view. So this is like high-level analysis of what we have. So as for dashboard, again, it also differs from other modules. It mostly contains some charts and the list of my activities, but mostly a graphical display, and it also doesn't look likely to be the first target for automation. So I'm tracking all this information down. So about what we have here, we have a progress bar, we have grids, and if I look in more details, there are different types of grids. This is a plain grid here. Here in the contacts, it's an expandable grid. Then it's grouping. It has grouping, so data is collapsible, and there is no way to ungroup. And finally, it's filterable. So there is a filter field to select something. So this is, again, it's the same grid, but with a bit different view. Here we have an activities and opportunities related to a contact. It's also the same grid, but it also has grouping, but it has no filtering. So it's a bit harder to work with, but it's possible to edit right from here. Opportunities view, again, the same type of grid, the same type of view, and it has grouping, just like with contacts, and it has filtering. For activities, we already know it's a calendar view by default and list view. So we have this grid as a major control that we need to know how to deal with. We don't have trees, so collapsible grid works as a tree here. We have calendar control here, and we have filtering, which is important because it may be helpful for us. So this is like first level analysis. We will just get some idea about application, about modules. And the next step is to make our hands dirty and try something. So here we have completely new test in rupees, and we're going to start with it and try something with application itself. One thing to notice, you see when I switch to companies module, or I switch any of, select any of the companies here, I have this error message. Again, this is something to notice in the beginning. So we have a bit kind of trouble with these companies. And this means that we need to either have a workaround for it, or we need to wait for this problem to be fixed by the dev team. So we need this information. For us, since we don't have this dev team, we assume that like this module is not yet ready for automation, and we need to know it from the beginning. We don't need to bother about it. Okay, now try. So we have two major controls to care about, and we will try to work with them right now. So I'm going to do some recording and watch what will happen when I do recording. This is not a recording of the test. There is no goal to record something meaningful. This is a recording that mostly for noticing things. So, and I already noticed one thing. See what's happening. I'm selecting different menu items, and in all cases, it records set check on some radio button. So looks like this menu is actually implemented as a set of radio or toggle button controls, and the names of these menu items is somehow hidden, so we don't have it here. So this is not a good way of and this is not the way we want our menu to behave. We may now try a bit different approach. So let's use SPY and look in more detail. So I'm starting tracking, pointing to one of menu items, stop tracking, and let's see. That's it. So this is a radio button. The radio button not within like some group control, it's just within some custom control, which is not just normal for radio buttons because they always part of radio group. And the name is inside this radio button. And actually, this is the place we want to record or learn to work with this menu. So let me just show how, in this case, I would behave. So if I need to record this menu, I would just select these items and learn them one by one. So this is what dashboard. This is for companies or contacts, opportunities, and activities. In the article for this webinar, I also show an alternative way of dealing with the same menu, so it's recorded properly. So if you don't want to do this learning, you may check there and see another way of doing the same. Okay, so I'm finishing. So I have my main menu learned some way. Nothing to append, no actions, just learnings, and these are items. So this is now these objects are in a way I like because I can understand what is it, what this item means. So and I know how to interact with it, how to click on it. Next thing that's interesting for me is a table. So let me go to contacts and let me select some item here, like here, for example. So let me record again with rupees. And let me click somewhere like at Donald. You see, what I can notice here is that it recognizes only the text, Donald Stewart. It doesn't recognize the whole grid or the whole table. So this means that it's recorded just single cell, not the cell within the table. So we don't have support for this table, and it's it makes things harder to deal with, and we need to do something about it. So we have this Donald. Now let's see what we may do with it. So it's click on Donald. I actually don't want this action now. I only need Donald here. Let me flash it to see if I can now find it on the screen with the way it's recorded so far. Yeah, so Donald is here. Now, what happens if I collapse this? Let me go back, let me flash again. You see, the problem is if it's collapsed, it disappears and RP is unable to find it anymore. It is because we have a dynamic grid here. So if I collapse everything, you see this TransLTF company has nine employees. And if I go with SPY and see how many employees I can see from the object tree, from the automation object tree, let me select one of them. It's a single employee. Yeah, it's a single employee. Go to its parent. So this is the whole grid. These are grouping rows, and expanded rows are displayed here. You see one by one. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 employees are now available in the tree. So I need to scroll to the bottom. And now if I refresh this tree, refresh, all 9 will appear here. So this means you may count. So there is 7 plus 2, 9 employees in total. This means that the tree is completely dynamic. And if we have scenarios, automation scenarios that are about to compare the whole grid with some expected data, with database, or with something like that, we are a bit in trouble, and we will have to implement some special routines or functions to do it. So it's something tricky out of the box. So at this point, we just need to know about that. So the grid is tricky. Also, we may notice this expansion. So sometimes expansion is good because we may then filter. So, and filtering is another feature that is to help us to move on with this. So at this point, I think we done basic try phase, and we may combine all information we got so far in the table like that. So we have one label menu. We managed to support it. That's fine. So dashboard contains graphs, and we are not like to work with. We don't want to work with it because it's not looking like easy target. So grid is mentioned a few times. This means we need to know how to do specific things with this grid. So it's hard to list something. It's hard to get total number of items in the grid because they're dynamic and there is no total displayed. So adding item is possible because it's a straightforward operation. We may just hit add and add new employee. It doesn't require grid. And I didn't do it right now, but normally I tried this adding operation and I know it works. So editing operation is a bit harder because we need to somehow select what to edit. But with filtering, we may probably do something. Calendar is, again, a hard target, and we need calendar support. That's another subject to estimate, to do something before we can automate it. And as for companies, we know there is an error here. So we should address this error first before trying to automate it. Now, we move into the next stage. So we did analysis, we tried it, we looked at the application from the and its internals. Now we are about to make a plan of what we are going to do. We want to move on with our automation project. So first we start with very basic initial test plan. We just list models here, and we list some common set of operations here. And after filling that, we see that it's not maybe so good, because for dashboard, we don't need this add, edit, and so on. For activities, also the view is specific, and we need some more specific operations. Also, there are things like opportunities linked to contacts. So we need additional operations linking things between these two modules. So I just go at this module by module, look at the application and refine it. And finally, I come up with maybe a list like that. So again, the list of models and like more adequate list of what this module may do, or what this module advises user to do, and or allows user to see. So what we may test here in each particular module. Well, this is again a roof test plan. It may be refined. Some items may be refined and split into 10 other items, so the test set may grow. But in general, roughly, we may deal with it at this level. Now, at this level, with this detailization, we are ready to do some kind of prioritization. This is what we are doing planning for. We may pick up things we think we may do, and also mark the things that we think are hard to do. So we are going to first focus on long-hanging fruits, or we're going to first cover simple things. Finally, we come up with this kind of labeling. So we mark with green, low-hanging fruits, the things we may start doing right now. Then there are two other labels, like moderate things, hard things. We may also refine this, but it's not like first priority thing. We may keep this level 2 or level 3 prioritization for later point. We may do it in parallel with implementing this, because while doing implementation, we will also learn more about application, and we may have some more valuable input that will help us with this separation. For now, for us, the most important is to know which are the simplest things and we are going to cover here. So we're going to start with contacts module, and we're going to implement operations add, edit, find by name, and view information about contact. So we have an empty test in Spira. I also already have a menu, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to remove this Donald Stewart. This is not the way I'm going to work with contacts here. And in the file view, I'm going to refine. I'm going to convert this test, which is at the planning stage, to test framework, to the like wireframe of my new test framework. And we recommend to do test framework using subtests feature of RPs. So I'm choosing create subtest, and first subtest would be contacts add. This subtest will have no own objects and no own functions. I want all my tests to share the same object tree and the same utility functions, because I expect common function to, for example, wait for the loading. I expect common objects like main menu to be used across the test. And also I see that application is not so really big, so just one object tree would be enough to fit everything. So first subtest is contacts add. It would also use REL. Then create another subtest. It would be contacts edit. Also, I'm checking this, creating REL. So we have two subtests in the framework, and so on and so forth. I may add like subtest contacts view, and I would actually proceed. So I may do it right now. If later I know that I need one more subtest, I may add it at any time later. So for now, these three are enough to just demonstrate that it's a framework, not just a single test. Okay, so, and the first one is add, and this is the one I'm going to implement right now. I'm double clicking on this subtest, and I'm forgetting about the framework, and I'm focusing on this subtest right now. What I'm planning to do is to record a few steps. Let me return application to its initial state, to dashboard. So my goal is to first, where is RVL? Here. First, I need to navigate to the contacts module. So since we have a shared objects, as I selected, I want to click on the contacts menu item. So object is contacts, do click. So if I just play this, I should end up at the place where I wanted to. Now, I'm going to do some recording. Up. What I choose? Not this target. Sorry. Recording. Choosing right application this time. So I navigated to contacts. I'm going to hit add button. So since I have a common object tree, I would prefer to have prefixes for the buttons and the edit boxes. So I would add contacts to every recorded object. I hit on the name field. You see again, do click is recorded but it has a text name, and I want to change it with contacts name. Click it again. I have a redundant click recorded. That's not a problem. I will remove it. Changing the text. So it records set text, which is good. And next is company. I want to fill name, maybe position. Why not? Again, name this contacts position. Okay. Click again, manager. Maybe remove this redundant click here. It was due to me changing the object name, and this also not needed. Okay, that's fine. So we always recommend go in smaller chunks. Don't try to record the big scenario from the beginning because it's not time effective. So I just have one piece, just hitting the add button and filling a couple of fields. Fields are properly named, so that's good. So I'm already in contact, so I may just try to cancel editing here and try to just play this piece. Set the name. Play selection. You see it's stuck. This means something not found on the screen. The object that is not found is contacts add new. Most probably this is because we changed the name and there is ignore object name set to false. So it checks, it compares this name to actual name of the object on the screen, and that's why it fails. So if I just do flash, it should flash the add button, but in this case it says I cannot find it. Okay, that's an expected situation. I'm just changing it to ignore object name. Name and position already have it because it's text input, so only this button. And now with ignore object name, if I just flash, it highlights the button. That's good. So I'm going just to play all the part, fill in both contacts, but I need to, yes, it's already collapsed. It's ready to start new input. So I'm going to play it. And you see, it failed. It was trying to click on the name, but name was not available because it was showing this loading section. So at this point, so ideally I should support this loading dialog, but right now I'm a bit limited in time. So I will use the simplest workaround is to wait. Global do sleep, like maybe 2 seconds. Usually that's enough. Again, closing here. Okay. And play from here. So you see, I don't tend to play the whole script. I'm trying to play it in smaller pieces. You see, it waited as needed, and it filled the user contact name and position. I can move on with recording and try to fill the company. I click on the company dropdown, and you see nothing is recorded. Choosing some company, and company is selected by its name, but it's not select item. Unfortunately, it recorded the label click. And at this point, I may be okay with that, but in general, I would prefer this application to this company name to be configurable. You may find how I did it in the article, and I will also attach the full featured scenario after this webinar, and it will be mentioned in the article. But for now, I'm going to limit to this like limited way of selecting something. You see, I'm appending this step to the name, so it clicks on trust power, and this trust power is recognized as a label, which I don't like, and it is it's not available from the beginning. So I first have to click on the combo box to be able to do something. So I need to record again. So if I just play this or try to flash this, it should fail because this trust power label is not available. It's a part of the drop down, and it's not here. We didn't see this highlight. So I need to show this drop down. So I'm going to learn this combo box itself. learn the combo box, finish. I want to insert it here. It would be, what is it? It's combo box. I would rename it to contacts company combo box. Company combo box, and click on it. So let me see if that works, this piece of logic work. I'm going to select different company and going to play this piece. Play selection. You see, it select the trust power. That's fine for now. We're going to refine it. One more step in the recording is to hit save. Commit, edit. It would be contacts, commit, edit, finish. Append it to the end. Check the object, contacts, commit, edit. If it has ignore object name false, set it to true. That's it. So the button should work. Okay, we may now fill a new contact from the beginning. Let me change its name to John Smith 1 and try to play. I may play it, even I may play the whole script here. That's it. So it adds a new user. Now we need to validate the new user is here, and we're going to quickly record this. I will now skip renaming. I see we are tough in time. I will do it really quickly. So I'm going to do expand, then hit the filter for the name, then click in the filter text and type John Smith. I already have John Smith 1. And hit the filter field and close this. I should make sure that exactly one item found, you see it's here. So I'm going to try to learn this, the one, but it learns the whole row. I don't like it. I'm going to use spy, track this piece, and surprisingly, this button looks like solid, but if I go to its parent, I can see this text is here. It's here. So I'm going to learn this number. Finish. So I want to verify that number of found items is exactly 1. Let me rename this. I will set ignore object name to true. Set found count. Oops. Found count. That's it. Now I'm going to add an assertion. Check one user found. Assertion time is output equals to something, output of some action or property, and property is found count get text equals to 1. And that's it. Let me change this to another username, John Smith 2, and try to just play it from the beginning. I didn't return an application to initial state. Let me do this. So in the script, in the final script, it returns it, but currently I'm in the intermediate state. So I'm just trying to do something working as is. Add. It didn't work because I didn't clean the filter, which is also bad. Clear filter. It also complains about company selection. So it didn't work properly. Let me add some delay before saving. This is a save button. I'm going to add some sleep here and also some sleep here. Now I can change it to, John Smith 3 and here John Smith 3. So, and now let's play. Okay, John Smith 3 is here, filtering, entering it, exactly one found, and that's all. The test passed. I now can go back to my framework. And I may drag this test, so I may make it a part of the test set. So it will execute this test first. And that's probably everything I was going to show you today. So the idea is always implement simple tests first. So while implementing, we are learning, we know what to refine, how to build the test framework, and then we're ready to proceed to more complex and moderate tests. Also, the summary for today's talk is we always recommend you to go in some sort of this path, start from analysis, then try, then do planning, and only then start implementation. Don't try to first start doing some scenario provided by someone else without first 3 preliminary stages. This way, you have 3 to be trapped in a scenario like the one mentioned, like here. So someone would require you to work with, for example, companies. You will spend a lot of time here, and during that time you could have many these green things already done. You could add much more value if you plan yourself what you are going to do. This way you are more flexible and you're more powerful. That's it. That ends my today's talk. Next time we will see you on the next webinar from this series. It would be provided by Denis Markosov, and it would demonstrate automation of the mobile application. So how to work with mobile UI testing. So thank you for attention, Teresa.
Denise, maybe we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Thank you, Teresa. Alexei, also thanks for a great presentation. We have just a couple of questions, so I think that we have time. So I'll be very quick asking them. The first question is why you say application is made in WPF, but use UI automation library to test it?
Good question. Yeah. So WPF is a technology used to create application. UI automation stands for technology used API for accessing application by test tools. And UI automation is a generic protocol. So when we find out that we have no special support, then we use UI automation as a generic protocol for testing application on the desktop. That's why I mention it here. That's it.
Okay, thanks. And the last question is how to wait for that loading message in the script?
Okay, good question. So we have again an article here. Here it is. I have it open here, and since I was expecting I may have not enough time, and I explained how to do this here. There is an utility function, there is a procedure on how to catch specific property. So you may find an explanation on how to deal with these loading messages in the article for this webinar. I hope you will find it helpful. That's it.
Okay, yeah, this is helpful. So it was the last question. Teresa?
Hey, great.
Thank you, Denise. And thanks again to Alexi. That was a fantastic presentation, and we appreciate it. To the attendees, just a reminder that we will send out an email in a couple of days with a link to the recording of the webinar. And we'll hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in the series titled Automating Mobile UI Testing, which is scheduled for Wednesday, November 20th at 10 a.m., 3 weeks from today. So this concludes today's session. Thanks again to Alexi and Dennis. And to the attendees, thanks for watching.